learners, we are back again with the module on counseling psychology, and in this module we'll be talking about the meaning and purpose of workplace counseling. So Peter Drucker is a very well-known name in this area, and he's one of the greatest management thinkers of our time, who says about this concept that in a few hundred years, when the history of our time is written from a long-term perspective, it is likely that the most important event the historians will see is not technology, not the internet, nor e-commerce. It is the unprecedented change in the human condition. So basically, as he also quoted, it is very important that we should focus on humans and their conditions, and that's where this module's topic steps in. So here we'll be talking about the work, the workplace, the counseling, the organization, and how all these areas are related, can be used for the benefit of workforce. So counseling, as we all understand, it's one service that basically helps people to learn that how to manage themselves. So let's start with the first topic in this area, which is work. How do we understand the concept of work? This is our area that we'll be talking about right now. So work is what? According to the definition, it implies that if there is any activity which is undertaken by someone, any human, any employee, any of the women, any of the housewives. So basically the goal is to achieve a result, and this result can be tangible, this can be intangible also. The results could be positive also, the results could be negative also. But whenever we are doing a work with a goal, that whole thing, that whole activity comes under the arena which we basically say as work. Now, as we all are very familiar with the concept and the name of Sigmund Freud, who is a very famous psychoanalyst in our field, and he has talked about and gave the concept in which he basically tried to relate the work with the analogy of harness and horses. So he used to say that our work is basically our harness, which is controlling our unconscious states, which is controlling our unconscious desires, which is controlling our wishes and our impulses as well. So if it is very important for us to keep it in check. If it will be left unchecked, then it can be very disastrous for our existence, and this is something which is very important and it should be worked upon. So basically how he portrays the whole thing is that work is actually protecting us from ourselves as well as from others. So whenever we are doing a work, whenever we are in the process of achieving a goal, right, we are indulging ourselves, we are directing our desires and wishful states. So as he wrote once in the year 1927, that men are not spontaneously fond of work. We are basically being put down in certain kind of situations in which there is no choice left except working. So most of us do not work out of choice, but out of necessity, and this is something that we should think about. Okay, so work, whenever we are indulged in any work, or we know someone who's involved or indulged in any kind of a work in the society, you people can think about the fact that basically our work gives us an identity. So after knowing about our work, usually people ask us, what is the place of your work? What are the things that you do at your work? And that discussion, what do you do at your place, what kind of a work you are being assigned, what kind of teams you are involved in, what kind of projects you are being part of, it brings us to the next discussion over here, which is workplace. It is again a very, very important concept. How do you understand the concept of workplace? We obviously understand that two terms are very related, work that we have just talked about and workplace that we are coming on to. So workplace is what? It is all about a location. It's all about a space where our work is stabilized, right? Wheresoever an individual works to produce a capital, to produce a product, either for themselves or for someone else. Basically, this whole circle is known as workplace. So the digital era now has very beautifully changed this whole concept of workplace, as most of us have survived the pandemic, and we can see how our lives have shifted during that time. Earlier, we used to associate the concept of workplace only with offices, going to a particular place which is far away from our home maybe, right, and then working over there. But now this concept was wholly changed when we started working from home also. And there's so many companies in today's world who are working in this area, right, and they have actually advised their employees that they can opt for work from home, which is very beneficial, right, for the employees also and for the employers as well. There are different kind of benefits. Now, whenever we are working in a place, specifically, let's just come back and move out of this idea of work from home, and let's just come back to the place when a workplace is actually located outside, right? Whenever you're going to an office, at any other physical space, I would say, right? So whenever we are working with different kind of people, and we understand, being like, being from psychology, whenever we are trying, or maybe we get interest in psychology. Psychology is all about people. Whenever you're trying to understand people through scientific methods, right? You're doing different kind of observations, you're doing different kind of interviews, right? You're opting for other different kind of methods. So basically the whole point is, whenever there are two or more people and they're working in an area, or maybe there are offices where there's so many people, for example, like more than 200, more than 500, more than 1,000, right? So whenever people are working together, a thing which you just cannot avoid is having issues between the people, right? And that's where we need to understand the psyche. We need to understand that why different kind of conflicts are emerging, why different kind of problems are emerging every other day. Why do people who used to be so good along together, now they're not able to be part of a team, they're not able to work together, right? Why people are facing different kind of issues at their workplace, right? So here in this slide, we'll be talking about the fact that there are different kind of workplace issues, but because of the time constraint, we'll be talking about the very common workplace issues that either we have been through or we must have heard someone who have been through this, right? So first in this is interpersonal conflict. So interpersonal conflict is all about, it's between the people, right? So whenever you're working with the co-workers, with your people in your team, or maybe people who are at your level, or people maybe who are sitting besides you, right? So whenever you are having conflicts with your co-workers, that is known as interpersonal conflict. It is something which is not avoidable. You can effectively manage it, and that's where counseling steps in, right? And that we'll be talking about again. So in this interpersonal conflicts, it's all about the conflict with the co-workers, with your co-workers, and it could be different kind of conflicts as well. Then communication problems, that is another thing, and there's so many people in our field who are working on this area. There's so many motivational speakers who are working in this area, who are talking about the fact that yes, all of us somewhere or the other, maybe very much or maybe very little, but we have issues whenever we are talking to people. It could be our boss, it could be any of our co-workers, it could be our clients, it could be anyone. And these are the communication problems which are just not limited to the workplace issues, right? But this can be managed too, and it should be managed because it creates a lot of gap between the communication, and hence different kind of conflicts arise. Then the issue of harassment. It is very, very common in workplace. Maybe you can talk to people who are working in different kind of setups, right? It could be an educational setup, it could be a corporate setup, it could be a government sector setup, different levels, somewhere or the other, either mildly or severely, but people are going through different kind of harassments, and that's why workplace issues should be catered. So in harassment, there are different kind of harassments. Harassment is not only of one form that we usually are very aware of, I would say, or would identify with, right? So for example, we usually understand the concept of sexual harassment or physical harassment, right? These are the two forms that most of us are usually aware of, but there are other forms also. So we should be aware of that as well. For example, verbal harassment is there, For example, like if there is someone who's always using very derogatory terms towards you, or they're calling you out names, that's not something which is very healthy for the psychological health of the person. The next is psychological harassment. Psychological harassment again is a very broad term. So how you're talking to someone, how they're treating them, it's not only verbally but also non-verbally. All these things come under psychological harassment. Then we have cyberbullying also. This also comes under harassment. Not many people are aware about it, but I guess with the cybersecurity thing and different kind of people coming out and speaking about the harassment makes it a thing which is, I guess, most of the people are aware of right now. What is happening with you when you're online, right? It comes under cyberbullying. Then we have discriminatory harassment as well. So discriminatory harassment covers different kind of harassment, different types of discriminatory harassment which are on different grounds. For example, racial harassment. So like people who are from different race as compared to yours, right? So there are people when they go to a new place, or maybe when they're working in an office which is different, where there are people who are from different races, right? So they also face different kinds of harassment. Then we have gender harassment. As there are multiple studies which are in this area, and they have even the different people who are working at a very good positions in the workforce, in the companies, in the MNCs, they have also talked about the fact there's a concept which is known as glass ceiling, you know. So in this concept, usually it has been seen, and this is not a thing which is about today. Today times are changing, of course, but the pace is very slow. So in the gender harassment, we have seen it that in the gender harassment, the women are not given the equal opportunity. They are not given that kind of resources so that they can also show their potential. Then the divided responsibilities towards the work-life balance, it also affects a lot. Then we have religious harassments as well, and people are going through it, right? And of course, apart from this, there are many other types. Then the next kind of workplace issue is disorganization. So why does it happen? It happens because the employer, they might not have structured processes in place. They might have given you some work, they might have assigned you some work, but the way they wanted it, the way this whole structure should run, they are not very aware of it, and they have not even made you aware. And this is something which creates problem for you, because either it may result in role overload, it might result in role underload, there might be a confusion, what is to be done, what is right and what is wrong, whom to talk to, right? So disorganization is a very common workplace issue which should be handled. Then multitasking. Multitasking is all about that, okay, you are doing some work and then several kind of work roles have been given to you. Okay, you are being assigned to one position, but then A, B, C, D, maybe 4 kind of roles, and the assigned work has been given to you, and becomes very overwhelming for the person, and it is not at all good for their mental health. Next type of workplace issue is physical discomfort. So it is all about the line of work you are employed in. You as a person, as a human, everyone has different physical capabilities, different kind of physical strength. So it might be possible that there are physical restraints which are involved in your line of work, and that is why it is becoming not a very comfortable position for you, right? Now, last type of workplace issue that I have involved in this is bullying. Now, there are different kinds of bullying. Of course, as we have talked about cyberbullying earlier, there's verbal abuse also, there's physical abuse also, right? So whenever you are trying to bully a person, it's actually kind of abuse which should not be done, and it's not very good also. Now, we have talked about workplace, we have also talked about the kind of issues people are facing. Now, all these discussions are leading us to the fact that how can you actually understand it? That what are the work-related stress? What kind of work-related stress could be there, which will make counseling an indispensable part of your workplace, right? So some signs that employers should look for, that is it the possibility that a counselor should be there, right? What kind of a counselor should be there? Then how much population is being affected? And these are very common signs that are there and that should be looked upon. So for example, if you can see that the people who have been very sincere, very regular in the workplace, in their work, in their meetings, right? But over the period of time, the concentration is lacking in them. It is decreasing. Then productivity is also decreasing. And ultimately, this is the job of the employers to work on it. Because if the employees will not be able to work properly to their fullest potential, then the cost is not only for the employees, it is for the employers as well. Then feeling negative, of course, all right? So there are people who over the period of time, or maybe suddenly as well, they become very pessimistic. They have a very pessimistic outlook towards the situation, which is not considered very right. Then irritability or short-tempered, right? So this is again a sign that one should look for. Nowadays it is very common, right? People are being very, very short-tempered. So now how to understand that? You need to know that what kind of behaviors they used to exhibit earlier and how much it is affecting their temper. Why suddenly it happens that it makes them angry. Anything which usually people, it does not make people angry. But now it is happening. So why is it happening? Why they are so irritable all the time? Why they are not feeling happy, right? Then sleeping more or less than usual. So these are conditions, they are clinical conditions which are known as insomnia and hypersomnia. So either sleeping more or sleeping very less. So whenever people feel a lot of stress, so these two kind of things happen. Either they sleep a lot or they stop sleeping. And then you can see all those cases in which people are taking sleeping pills, they are going to the doctors and they're not consulting the right person. It should be a psychologist or it should be a psychiatrist. Then headaches are very common. So headaches are not only related to the physical condition of the body, it is also related to the mental health. So it is very important that you should be aware about all those conditions which are affecting your mental health negatively. Then we have aches, body aches and pains as well. So this is another clinical condition, right, in which we are trying to avoid a particular kind of stress but it turns out in physical form. So body aches and pains can be easily, they are telling about it. They are telling about it to their family, to the near and dear ones, maybe to their colleagues, that they're having body aches, they're having pains, and whenever they visit to a doctor, they usually say that they're healthy, right? Then another thing which is very important, and I think this is the most clearly visible things, that this person who is having work-related stress, they start avoiding social situations. They just do not want to interact with anyone because it is not giving them happiness, as simple as that. So these are some of the signs which I found are the most easiest ones to look for so that you can extend help to them. Now it also includes communication problems, it also includes discriminations, it includes different kind of gossips which are going on in the company. It might be possible that there is a poor job fit as well. It might be possible that the person is not feeling motivated enough to do something. It could be that the job dissatisfaction is there, and of course the performance issues as well. Okay, so now we come over to the term counseling. So counseling, I'm sure you must be aware of, you have different kind of ideas about it. So British Association for Counselling and Psychotherapy, which is also known as BACP, in the year 2016, which is not very old, they have defined the field of counseling as that counseling and psychotherapy, they are umbrella terms that cover a range of talking therapies. They are delivered by trained practitioners who work with people over a short or long term to help them bring about effective change or enhance their well-being. So they have very nicely and very professionally and very creatively, I would say, they have given this definition which combines everything, through which you can understand what is this field all about. So here is the meaning of workplace counseling for all of you. As we have understood different concepts through which we are coming for this module, for this topic. So now we'll be talking about what is workplace counseling. So there are different people who have worked in this area, and Carl and Belton, they are a big name in this area. In the year 1997, organization and counseling, they said that they are two different fields, but they need to come together so that we can understand that what is workplace counseling. All right. So what is workplace counseling? So I have stated over here two definitions. Both are recent. One is by Hughes and Kinder in the year 2007. Another one is by Bejurek and Bevan 2020. So how do they define the concept of workplace counseling? Workplace counseling refers to the ability to deal with issues that occur within an organization, for example, conflict, stress-related absence, work-related trauma, and harassment or bullying. The other people who have given the definition of counseling is as follows. They have specifically defined that counseling which is provided in the work setting. It could be internal also, it could be external service also, which is given by counselors, which is decided by the employers. Why it is done? To basically help the employees with any of the mental health issues that have arisen from or which has worsened by work. So again, this is very important. So what are the kind of issues that basically counselors work on, and research has shown that over the period of time, these are some of the very common issues. Okay, so these are the issues. For example, having anxiety. It usually starts from a lower level of anxiety, which is not easily noticeable, and then over the period of time, if left untreated, if left misdiagnosed, I would say, usually the anxiety heightens up, and it can even convert and take a form of a disorder. So anxiety, depression, or any other kind of a mental or emotional problem that the employee is going through. And if all these problems, if all these maladjustments in everyday lives are not being catered to, they turn, and one day it takes the form of a very severe form, which is basically known as the disorder. Then having family or relationship issues. So one should not assume only that workplace issues are something like this, which is like, the problems are coming out or originating basically from the workplace. That is not the fact. The work-life balance is all about this concept that how your work is affecting your personal life and how your personal life is affecting your work life, right? So family and relationship issues are very, very important. So whatever problems you are going through in that phase of your life, it does affect the work phase of your life as well. Then indulging in substance abuse or any other kind of addictions. These are also very commonly found that are being catered in the counseling sessions. Then sexual abuse and domestic violence, another thing which leaves a very strong impact on the individual. Absenteeism is easily seen, very, very easily seen, and this is also an issue which is very commonly found and which is very commonly being catered as well, that why are you not coming for work for a very long period of time. Then career change and job stress. This is another thing. Usually in midlife, people go through different kind of experiences and they wonder why they have landed up in a particular kind of a career and why they are not going for the other one, why they have not went for the other one. So any kind of a job stress or any kind of a career change also comes under this. Then social and emotional difficulties related to disability and illness. So any kind of a social difficulty, any kind of a emotional difficulty which is related to any type of a disability or illness should also be catered to. Then all of us, we have different phases in our life, we have different transitions, some are expected, some are not expected. So there are people who are able to adapt to it easily, and then there are people who are not able to adapt to it easily, right? So adapting to life transitions is again a very important thing. Then there are some people who are not able to deal with that rough phase, and hence it can create a mental health condition for them. Then the death of a loved one. It's not easy, it's not able to come out of it. One needs proper time to heal and come out of it. So it can even create a stress, and you can see that turbulence in the behavior and in the performance of the employee. Then appropriate referrals after assessment. This is again very, very important. Whenever you're doing assessment, whenever you're going for the session, this is very important that you're getting appropriate referrals. Then there's another person who has worked in this area, Carroll, in the year 1996. He gave a functional definition of workplace counseling in which he has talked about the three important factors. One is organization, another one is employees, third one is the counselor, that all three of them, they share a very dynamic relationship. This is very important. So the workplace counseling is different from other types of counseling. So this is something which I think you should keep in mind, that how this dimension of counseling is different from the other dimensions or other types of counseling. So first important criteria is that it is done and provided specifically in the workplace settings, right? So no other settings are being catered to usually because it's a workplace issue, so it should be catered over there. Then it focuses only on workplace issues or work related issues which is affecting the productivity of the employees. This is again important. Then workplace counselors must understand that how does an organization work. If they are being called for or they are being part of a particular organization, it is very important for them to understand the structure of that organization, to understand that what kind of a culture is being prevailing in that workplace, what kind of a practices the people are indulging in, what kind of challenges they are facing, and hence it is affecting the well-being not only of them but also of the organizations, right, and its whole processes. Now we will try to understand that what does this term means organization. So this is another person, Shen. He has defined organization as the rational coordination of the activities of a number of people for the achievement of some common explicit purpose or goal through division of labor and function and through a hierarchy of authority and responsibility. Now we can see organization in two ways. So first way is basically you are seeing that how this cognitive and purposefully acting entity, जहाँ पे हम hierarchies की बात करते हैं, जहाँ पे हम logical and rational thinking की बात करते हैं, we talk about coordination, we talk about decision making, we talk about the power hierarchy, we talk about the goals. It could be the explicit ones also, it could be the implicit ones also. It does not emphasize on people having social relationships. It does not emphasize on people having interactions or emotional expressions. But this view basically talks about that there is a very rigid business approach and it paints organization as if it's more like a carrot and stick approach, right? So it is a very heartless enterprise which just talks about the fact that how much productivity you are showing in the company, and that is the only thing which is important for them. Now we come to the second view, which is having a view which is more humanistic, I would say. So organization is viewed as a living entity. वहाँ पे we are seeing it as an acting entity. Here it is a living entity in which we talk about the fact that how amalgamations of different kind of cognitions, different kind of emotions and different kind of actions are basically determining the nature and the culture of an organization. So it's all about that it is made up of living beings and hence the individual is very much needed to be considered in totality. This is again very important. Whenever it's more like you are taking an individual for a job for which they have an aptitude. An organization also wants that and a person also wants that. So it's a very best fit approach. Now what are the benefits of workplace counseling? So there are benefits to the employees as well. There are benefits to the employers as well. So what are the benefits to the employees? So first is to understand situations and to look at them with a new perspective. So whenever they are getting counseling at the workplace for the issues which are affecting their work-life balance, which are affecting their performance, which are affecting different phases of their lives. So it is very important that once they enter into counseling and they stick to it, they will start understanding to look beyond as well. So to get a new perspective, to work on it. Then improve decision making. Of course, you can see that because decision making is a thing which very highly negatively, I would say, gets impacted. It's not a right thing. Then the unhealthy patterns of thinking also changes. Then finding alternative solutions to problems. This is very important. So whenever like we are stressed, we usually think in a very linear way. Our multi-directionality stops. Our way of thinking, processing things, it ultimately all of these things stops. So it's very important to find alternative solutions to the problems as well. Then again, it is very important that their coping increases. Their coping with the work situations increases. Their coping with the work stressors increases, right? Then anger management is a very common issue nowadays. Irritability, being short-tempered, all these things needs to be handled, and if they are able to be part of that session, if they're able to stick through it and work through it and navigate through it effectively, they will be coming out with very amazing stress management techniques, and anger management will be very good. And ultimately, the best benefit I would say out of this whole list is they'll be able to find a work-life balance. And of course, the benefits are not only for the employees, they are for the organization as well. So what are the kind of benefits that organization is getting, which is costing them millions and millions? So first is that there will be decreased costs. Cost related to turnover, cost related to burnout, when the employees are just not coming out, they're giving up from the job. Absenteeism, they're just not ready to come to the workplace because of the stresses over there, because of the environment over there. And of course, accident related disability. Then, next benefit is that in employee performance, you will see a very steep hike if they are able to be part of that counseling session, if they're coming out successfully from it. And hence, the productivity also increases. Then next one is that counselors can also play the role of a business partner. And how is that so? Because they can actually help in managing different kind of behavioral problems which are brought about by organization changes. So whenever organization change takes place, it impacts the employees very directly because the turbulence is there in their comfort zone. So it's very, very important that whenever organization is planning any kind of organization culture change, organization development change, the counselors should be there to handle that dilemma and lots of confusions. Okay, so I'm able to get this data from the research papers that TCS, everyone is aware of, I'm very sure, Tata Consultancy Services and Wipro, both are Indian companies. They are having this counseling cell of theirs, which are these are basically the initiatives by the HR. And in this, they are working on this thing, how can we take care of our employees' mental health. So what is TCS doing? They have a network, and the name of the network is Maitri. And they initiated this thing in the year 2005, in which they counsel their employees. So at that time when they started, it was around 30,000. I'm sure it must have reached in lakhs. So under this initiative, 90% of TCS offices, they used to organize family get-togethers and activities, for example, like ball dancing, for example, like yoga classes, any kind of a theater workshops or any kind of hobby activities that the whole family can indulge in. So basically, what is this promoting? That it's helping employees so that they can work for long hours and still they'll be healthy, right? So the cost would be much lower as compared to when they'll be on absenteeisms, when they're not ready to come to office, when they're having different kind of illnesses. Then next is the example of Wipro. So to reduce employee stress after long working hours, the HR initiated and the name of this thing is Mitra. And it's an in-house counseling service. So in 2003, they set up trains employees in the counseling who used to help their colleagues in distress. So this is the inner thing. Basically, you're taking people who are from part of the organization, you're training them, and then they'll be able to help their colleagues or their co-workers as well. So this was done by the HR manager over there. Then as we have talked about this thing earlier as well, that there is a difference between organization and counseling. So Oldens is a person in the year 1996. He has delineated the differences between these two terms. So organization is more controlling towards the employee, but counseling is very helping, very productive towards them. The organization is having a very objective experience with the employee, but counseling is all about the subjective experience. Hence, it is able to help the people. Then organization always thinks very rationally, very logically, but counseling takes the other dimension, which is all about the feeling, all about the thinking part. Then organization is very hierarchical, counseling is very autonomous because it gives power to the employee that they want to change their lives for the good and they can do it. We are here to navigate the way for them. Then organization, it's all about the political, but counseling is all about the personal empowerment of the individual. Organization is competitive, but counseling is very cooperative. Now, how to build a successful program? This is very, very important. So, the following aspects of counseling are needed to build a successful program. So, if the organization is having this thing in mind that they want to start and work in the area of employee counseling, so it's very important that it should be tackled carefully for the organization part as well, the counselor part as well. And counseling can turn into a series of events for the employee also, for the organization also. So counselor, you can take a person who's very experienced in the organization, who has seen the different phases of the organization, or it can be some professional as well. So it can be a mature employee as well, whom you can train according to the ethics, or it could be a professional as well who's already trained. Then the counselor should be flexible in his or her approach, and there should be a patient listener, there should be no ambiguity on their part, and the employees should feel that they can trust this person. They can actually share their thoughts and the problems, and there is no fear, because if fear will not be there, then there will be no inhibitions and the sessions will be very smooth and the problem will solve earliest. Then active and effective listening is very important. It should be focused on, because if this will not be there, the whole point of conducting a session will be of no use. Then counselor should be able to identify the problem, if it is with the employees, if it is with the employer, if it is related to some personal phase of their life, if they are going through a rough patch in their life. So it should be identified and they should come out with a concrete advice. The counselor should be able to help the employee to boost the morale and the spirit of the employee, create a positive outlook and help employees to make decisions to deal with the problem. And here we come to the last slide of the session. Employers should really consider counseling as part of employee welfare initiative. It is very important. They should portray counseling as if it is a wellness program, because then it becomes, in our society, in our culture especially, it becomes more acceptable then. And it's not only about the work, because these two areas are very much related. Your work-life balance is very much related. And you'll be able to handle it only when you'll be able to express yourself, and that self should be expressed to a neutral party who has been proven that yes, they're very efficient and they can help you in coping with different hurdles of your life, to share with the emotional burdens, and to get a very different perspective regarding situations which can affect our well-being, but it can be handled. Thank you so much.